It's the Week 7 edition of Coach's Corner on RFM, and great to have you along with us wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook Live, or Twitch, or joining us with our partners at Tucka 56 Radio and Tucka56radio.com, or 95.1 FM, WLPZ, and WLPZ.org. It's the Coach's Corner. We will break down and analyze previous week's action and preview action to come in the week ahead. Todd Robbins joined as always with Leominster High School Head Coach Devin Gates, getting you ready for Week 7 action as Leominster plays host to Wachusett in the clash of 5-1 Central Mass teams in this 2022 season. Sure to be an exciting matchup. And if that isn't enough, add the pomp and circumstance of homecoming meets senior night, all in one night, and a battle of 5-1 teams. I said it at the end of last week's broadcast. Get there early at Doyle Field on Friday night. It is sure to be both a difficult parking as well as a difficult night for a ticket. So come on out and be a part of this one for sure. We'll have more on that at the end of the night. But Coach, we start where we always do, and that is looking back on Week 6 action. And this was a night where you rebounded from your first loss of the season in Week 5, and you did it in a way that I thought really was impressive, in the sense that nobody, no aspect, no phase of your team experienced any kind of lingering effect of the previous week's loss. It was a total team win, a 34-0 win over Algonquin last week in Week 6 action. It just felt like everybody said, well, goodbye Peabody. Algonquin's the team to focus on. And the next thing you know, it was 34-0.
Yeah, it's the mentality that we've had all year long. You know, once we get to Monday, it's put the game, the previous game to bed. We either enjoy it over the weekend or we lick our wounds over the weekend. And thankfully, we've enjoyed more than we've had to, than we've lost. So, but yeah, once we come to Monday, it's put the game to bed and we're on to the next opponent. And the guys really did a good job of focusing on Algonquin all week long. With the goal of rebounding and getting back on track. So, they took it to us last year, Algonquin did, and we wanted to make sure that we put our best foot forward this week and and played tough, strong football. And I think for the most part we did that.
And that was going back to last year, was Algonquin's first win in 9 previous tries playing Leominster since 2010. It was a short-lived streak in that regard. And where I think I want to start talking about last week is that game demonstrated some of the growth and development of your team and program from previous years to now. And that is, Leominster has been notorious for slow starts in first quarter action, even dating back to the early aughts of the 2000s, just slow starts, and then obviously picking it up and strong into the finishes when successful. And this year has been all about explosive starts and fast beginnings. And whether it's the defense causing a turnover to get the offense in position or your offense scoring within the first possession, it has been a year of quick starts. You've scored first in most of your games. It certainly does seem like it puts your team in a very different position than your program has been. And even before your tenure, the program had been prior.
Sure. I mean, obviously when games are tight, it kind of puts you on edge a little bit and make sure, no one wants to be the one that makes the mistake and, gives up a score or, allows the team to get closer or anything like that at all. So, as an offensive play caller, I've always tried to, have our foot on the gas to start the game. That's, when we feel like we're going to get teams base calls against us to be able to, push the ball down the field a little bit. And, that's worked out well for us so far this year. When we've had trouble against Peabody, that was an issue, and it carried itself to the rest of the game. And we're going to be faced with that kind of situation again, this week, playing a tough opponent where it's going to be, points are going to be tough to come by. Their defense has done a great job. It's worked out well for us so far, and we're going to try to continue that.
It's funny you should mention going to school on that Peabody game. We'll circle back to that when we talk about Week 7 action. I've got a couple of questions that line up in that general direction. But as we talk about this Week 6 game, and when I think about, you got a quick defensive stop in that very first possession of the game, and then here comes Ricky Encarnacion within a couple of plays, and he's gone for 81 yards up the sideline. And it was the beginning of a very big night for Ricky. But it just seemed like that moment of explosion. You get a few things going, they go well, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's the play. 81 yards later, Ricky finds himself 6 points. And, you said it was the fastest you've ever seen him run. And it was how exciting he was to be back on the field and back part of the game. But it just, to me, everything gets on the back of that moment early in the football game and then follows right down that same line.
Sure. Yeah. Our first offensive possession, we missed on we had a couple missed assignments that we corrected, in between that series and our next offensive series. And, we figured we, got to try to get Ricky the ball there. And they were kind of leaving the edge on the other side. There was no one really there to force, the runner inside. So we just, figured we'd give it a shot and got Ricky in motion there, gave him the ball, and, he did the rest. Got great blocks outside by the receivers. Brian Aguilar did a great job. Mackay had a lead block on that side too. Just a well-executed play there for us. And I think that kind of settled everybody back into the mode that we had been in before Peabody. So it was really just kind of like saying, okay, let's get back at it. We're good to go here. And it was almost kind of like a collective sigh of relief. And then we were able to kind of loosen up and play the way we want to play.
And if that didn't do it, I would certainly say the hammer dropped in the short while later when Osiris Lopez darted down the field for 63 yards of his own and found his way to a touchdown. And after a Ricky 2-point conversion, it's 14-0. And at that point, I think the thing that stood out more to me than anything else, and it got me thinking about the year, and it's not really easy to clock time of possession with the statistical analysis we're able to do, but your time of possession comparably with the amount of offense you're scoring, just given how fast your team has been able to score, has got to be strangely lopsided in that you don't possess the ball very long, but have produced a lot of points in a short window of time.
No, we've been lucky enough to capitalize on some big plays. And, when you do that and then you have, running clock, towards the end of the game, then, your possessions are shortened. And, I think we average right around 45 plays a game, which is, I think we've been used to being around 60 something plays a game. So, it just all speaks to the execution of our players, and our coaches' coaching plans. We put them in positions there to go make the plays and what we think is going to be open, and they've done that so far. So, got to be really happy for the kids and the way that they've approached this year so far. It's really just been a business, attitude. So all those guys are really tuned into what we want to do scheme wise. It's not, it just feels like this is a cohesive football team all going in the same direction right now.
No question about it. When you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, you certainly saw more examples of that. Josh Cormier's performance, we talked a little bit about it post-game. He was the theoretical wet blanket on any fire Algonquin tried to start. He just was everywhere. And I talked about it a little bit on the broadcast, and post-game maybe didn't, really get it to you as well as I would have liked to. To me, the thing that stood out, there was a back-to-back player within a couple of plays of each other where he made a great stop in run support. And then a couple plays later makes a tip dropping back into pass coverage. Like, to me, that little sequence just spoke so much about the way he played all night long, which was wherever the ball was and whatever the style was that was coming at him, he found his way to be there.
No, he's reading his keys very, very well and able to kind of get to the spots where he needs to. He wasn't hesitant at all, filling on run plays, and did a great job there. I think he had 13 solo tackles, 4 assists, for 17 tackles. That's a pretty good job for Josh. And then had that tip ball, almost one hand brought it down, David Tyree-esque against the helmet for his. It wouldn't be too soon to talk about that. But just against his helmet, almost had the pick there. But it's the best game that Josh has played as a Blue Devil. I think that said that on the broadcast after the game. But really proud of him, and he's just seeing things very well right now, and playing with reckless abandon. It's just not organized chaos, maybe I should say that. No, not reckless abandon, because he's very, very in tune with what he's doing, but he's getting there 100 miles an hour and playing really tough.
And he talked a lot about it. I don't think tally the number of times he spoke about this theoretical revenge tour that the team is on, and given these players that have been in your program and the trials and tribulations that they went through a period of time, both in the world of football and in the world outside of football, I think for a lot of them, it felt like they were getting beat up in every direction that they went. To have this year, to the way it's been, and trust me, we're in the middle of the year. There is a lot more fun to come, but how cathartic has it been for this program and these players, especially the long established ones who have been here the longest, to finally have this moment where they can have this? Like I said, I think it's a fun, way of looking at it. This revenge concert tour where it's city to city. They want to hop and kind of return the favor to what they've dealt with.
Well, I think there'll be time to reflect on that once the season is over. Right now we're it's something that we talk about amongst ourselves. I mean, we've been, the last couple of years, not up to Leominster standards. We've taken it on the chin quite a bit, and these guys, they bleed blue. They come out here and they give everything they can for this football program, for this town, for their teammates, and to come up short over and over again has been really, really tough. And we talked about last couple of years how well our guys move on to the next game and to the next game, but there's no way that losing like that hasn't taken its toll on our guys. And to be able to see success in just by continuing the process and trusting the process, and now you see things start to happen, I think they're excited about that, and they have a lot more confidence than they've had in the past. So it's nothing against anybody else at all. It's just us against our, basically competing against ourselves to do better than we have been. And they're taking it seriously, and they've really, they've really bought into it.
And those are all hallmarks of a program that's developing, right? All those pieces meet that confluence together. The buy-in comes together. The success starts to come. The cliche is success breeds success, but it's true. And people want to be a part of success. And then that adds on. And that seems to me to be the hallmark, the stoked fire of a growing program, which is where you ultimately want to be moving.
Yeah, we've talked about it in the past too. Even when I first started here, like this is the way we're going to be. These are our expectations. This is how we're going to hold ourselves accountable to everything. And if we do these things, then we will win. We'll be winners. It's taken a little while, and we've obviously had our bumps on the roads, and we're only halfway through this season. A little past halfway in the season, so there's a lot of football left to go. So we don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but I'm happy for the kids seeing their hard work pay off, and their persistence and their trust in us, as the coaches in the football program, to do what we think is right to get to this point. I'm proud of them for weathering the storm and getting to where they are right now. But we're still miles away from the finish line here, and we want to make sure that we're staying focused on, each and every week.
And no question about that. We're not jumping ahead, but it is fun to watch the pieces come together, to say the least. And I'm glad they can appreciate that in the process as well. And maybe that's something that is talked about, not discussed as well, or often discussed, is that part of the success of football teams, or any sport for that matter, as they start to see things fit, is finally being able to see the puzzle. Maybe they don't have all the pieces filled in, but they can finally see the puzzle, as opposed to when you're going through the trials and tribulations of, the conversions of the beginnings of seasons, or new programs, or new coaching staffs. It just looks like a bunch of pieces thrown up in the air, and you have no earthly idea what you're trying to build in the end.
Yeah. No, we've always had a process to build this foundation. And before we could build up, we needed to make sure that there were good roots and we were sturdy in the ground of what we wanted to do. And now that we've established that, now you're seeing, some of the payoff of that, the trust, and the work ethic, and, just the consistency of doing it over the last couple of years. And I think we found the right kind of mix of, who we are offensively and defensively. I think that's been a big part of it. But really, it's just been the kids trusting in the process, and that whole attitude that our senior class has brought and kind of passed down to our underclassmen. I can't thank the senior class enough for their approach to the game and to the season. So that's really, if you're looking for a place to point for success, it's the senior class.
No question about that. You'll get a chance to honor them come Friday night. Let's break down a play, because I want to again try to figure out how this could possibly keep happening week after week. But break down the play for me that was kind of the cherry on top at the tail end of the football game. It's another Lopez to Drinkwater explosion, another textbook beauty. You watch it through the air, and it's like watching it in slow motion. Receiver goes down on a beautiful go route, and the ball just seemingly hangs in the air and lands right where it's supposed to, in stride and into the end zone for 6 more. What'd you see on the play as you looked at it on videotape? How did it all come together?
Well, they had switched out the corner on that side and put in a different corner that hadn't been on Caden, earlier in the game. So we decided to take a shot there, and just kind of, it kind of put the game to bed. At that point, we wanted to move on from there. So just called up the go route there, and Caden ran a great route, was able to kind of delay the route, and the corner kind of bit up a little bit and got by him, and Osiris just delivered the ball on time, and it's their what's the word I'm looking for, their ability just to like telepathically communicate with each other it's something really special. They're just in tune with each other, and it's drop back one step, boom, put it out there, and Caden's going to come down with that ball.
A picturesque scene, to say the least. If you want to encompass what does really good football look like, that type of a picture from an offensive standpoint is certainly what you want to see. If there was any challenge that we could point to that your team has probably been dealing with, and we're looking for something to diagnose and analyze, it would have to be point after attempts. That's probably the one place you're still trying to find an identity. Dan Thompson is learning and growing into the kicking role, and there are times where you can see mechanically things go very, very well, and things look beautiful, and then there are times where he struggles maybe to lift it above the line a little bit, and that I just have to imagine is a combination of trusting your mechanics, staying with the program, and riding your way through some of the bumps and bruises of getting it right.
Yeah, Danny just needs more reps with everything too. We do the best that we can, up at the practice field right now. But we're only on Doyle, once a week for practice, for most weeks. So it kind of limits our time on the turf to kind of get the true look with the uprights and everything. So we try to get as many kicks in there as we can. We moved to a block with Danny, to kick off the tee, for the PATs, which has helped elevate the ball a lot better than he had before. But we just got to get more reps with him doing that. He's going to be fine. I think Danny's a really talented kicker. It's just being able to kind of get used to that and have, that approach and everything. You just start to be muscle memory. The only way to do that is to, we're filming him kicking, and you can go back and, see what his approach looks like. And it's just the reps and being able to correct those small things. Danny's going to be okay.
And it's a little different too. It's not a player who was traditionally a soccer style kicker who is, now going to play football. This is a, somebody who's learning to kick, and is a little more, I would say he's got just a slight bit of that soccer style, and is maybe a little bit of a Mary of the old way, which would be more of a straight on kicker as well. He's got that kind of balance between those two.
Well, Danny played soccer up until his freshman year. So
no kidding.
He does have that soccer background. Yeah. But he's been football since then. I think he may even tried out his freshman year, but I'm not 100% positive. I know we talked about it before, but no, he does have a soccer background, so he does have a little bit of that style in him there. It's just the approach is sometimes we've never done like the kickoff approach or the PAT approach. It's all about consistency and being able to start your approach at the right time, and where your plant foot comes down. So there's a pretty decent amount of science that goes into it, and I think Danny's just got to have more exposure to it and more reps, and that's tough to do when you really only get 1 or so days to be able to kick in the uprights down at Doyle Field.
Yeah, and then community wonders why it's so vitally important to get that second turf facility, up behind the high school, and adding more turf options and more turf opportunities for, players in the community. This would be one of those reasons why, as kicking off of a well-worn mud patch that many a generation has kicked off of, is not going to get it done in the grand scheme of things. I'll say it for you. You don't have to. Okay. Anyway, there you go. See, it's a gift from me to you.
It'll be a beautiful day for Leominster High School and all their students when that happens. I can say that.
We will all look forward to the blue ribbon cutting on that day. No question about that. I'm now going to pick your brain a little more. I like talking about this stuff. So I saw the kicking block come out. This is a unique to youth and unique to high school that allows the block. After that, college and above, they don't use it. But it's a small, flat plastic block. I've seen them before they go into the ground. What's the difference? I mean, does it change the plant location? How does it change what he's doing? Like you said, it raises the ball a little bit, so it's going to allow better access for the foot, obviously. What else do you see when you see that brought into place?
Well, I think that's really it for Danny. He was having problems, striking the ball like towards the middle of the ball or just below the middle of the ball, which, you're going to get more of your line drive kicks that way. So here just is able to elevate it up a little bit, just to kind of, we were starting to have trouble with that trajectory being close to being blocked a lot more. And we had a couple of blocks. So really, that's all it is being able to elevate the ball better. And we saw progress with that, this past week. So just going to continue to get more reps this week. And like I said, Danny's really committed to being a better kicker and to putting points on the board for us. So you think he kicked a 41-yarder actually in pregame too. So he has the leg. It's just the consistency. We're working with him on that, and he's definitely dedicated to getting that down.
We always say it. I mean, there's never enough time for special teams generally in levels of football, but at the high school level where people are platooned in multiple roles, there's definitely never enough time for special teams in the grand scheme of things. So many other things that have to happen along the way, and we'll look forward to watching that develop as well. Leominster improves to 5-1 after 6 weeks with a 34-0 victory over Algonquin, who falls to 1-5. And as we said at the end of the broadcast, becomes one of the first Central Mass teams that we could say have slid out of a potential playoff picture. But certainly look for this Algonquin team to continue to maybe turn some heads in the other games to come, and certainly in the seasons ahead as well. There's a lot more to that Algonquin team and program than was obvious in last week's game, and maybe obvious this season as well. To that same note, elsewhere in week 6, Wachusett with a 61-30 win over Shepherd Hill. Wachusett winning 40-0 at the half. We're going to come back to that and end up winning 61-30. We'll be back to that in a moment. Fitchburg gets their first win of the 2022 campaign at home. Crocker Field homecoming 32-21 over Westboro. Grafton edges Shrewsbury in a close 13-12 matchup there. Neshoba also with a close one against a quality Marlboro team, a 15-13 score in that one. And maybe the surprising note of the week was Doherty falling to 0-6, losing 43-6 to a quality Worcester South program that continues to grow and develop. Coach, I said we were going to get back to that 61-30 Wachusett win in a moment, and also back to a part of your game as well. And as I move some of my things out of order here, and that is how coaching has had to change and adapt decision-making wise due to power rankings and the components that are put in to make power rankings points happen. And we've talked a little bit about it here, and we're doing our best. I'm trying this year to educate as we go through this process, I suppose both myself and the community writ large. And that is to try to understand what's having to go through your mind as you are making these decisions. So before halftime, one of the things I noted in your football game is 21-0. You got the ball back with less than 30 seconds left before the half. The conventional thought process would be more or less to run the ball, kneel the ball, take it into the locker room up 21-0, come back and restart at the beginning of the second half. I suppose would be the typical way that the football world would look at it. Coach Dubzinski faced something similar in his game, up 40-0 at the half. He transfers over to his second teamers in the start of the second half. And then all of a sudden, Shepherd Hill comes roaring back with 24 points. And all of a sudden, your 40-24 game doesn't necessarily feel or look as good in the numbers. And so he has to go back to his first teamers in order to protect a 14-point margin of victory. And so here we are. Power ratings. I'm sick of talking about them, but we're going to keep talking about them because unfortunately, it is changing how you guys as coaches are having to make decisions about what you would do or what the logical thing might have been in previous years of football.
It's all about preserving those 14 points if you can, at that point of the game. And, it really, it's it doesn't feel great all the time. I got a lot of respect for Coach Allen and his coaching staff, and the last thing we want to do, and I think our staff did a pretty good job of not feeling like we're running anything up or anything like that, because it's not we're not out to embarrass anybody or anything like that at all. We have a lot of respect for the coaches in the in the area, and we've been there ourselves too. So,
and it's a close fraternity. You guys all know each other, and they're very close fraternity.
For sure. And we understand. We met as coaches in the offseason, just talked about these parts of the power ratings and what it might cause. And this is one of the things that we talked about, that being able to score and preserve and make sure you have that 14 points could lead to some situations like this, where making sure you have that extra score just to you can have that in the bank. If somebody comes back, then at least you're up by that amount of points, and you can make your decisions based on that. But it has caused us probably, push more for points in some of those situations than maybe we would have in the past. So again, we're out, our offense is out to score points right now. We're trying to go with our foot on the gas until it doesn't make sense to do it anymore. That's really the approach that we're taking. So I could see why, talking about Wachusett and why, they put guys back in the game, their starters back in the game in the third quarters, they're in a tight race for Division I. It's not a lot of points that separate, from like 8, or 6 on down. There's not a lot of points that separate all those groups. So being able to preserve those 14 points is huge for them. So it's strictly a coaching decision, a decision based on what's best for your team, in terms of their seeding. Nothing like that is personal against coaches. Like you said, it's a fraternity. We're all pretty close. We're all, been around each other. So, but unfortunately, it really is, part of the current landscape with the power rankings and what we need to do to make it the best spot possible for us in the state playoffs.
And what I'm hearing you say that I think is what people need to suss out of the situation is that it's kind of an awkward feeling at points. You're put in this kind of awkward decision making. And to me, I don't want coaches that are put in a position to have to make decisions about scoring or not scoring or whatever based on some mathematical equation that has little to do with the games that they're playing. That's, I think, the challenge that I have in what I'm hearing coaches talk about, is that you're having to modify your thought process and what you'd want to do in order to do this because you have to.
Yeah. Basically, if we have the chance to put another score on the board, just to make sure that we have those 14 points walking away, then that's what we got to do. So it's a lot more decision making based on those points and preserving those points for you for the power rankings than there is about the human aspect of the game, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's definitely a factor in what we're doing, and we'll see after this year if there's any modifications made or anything like that at all. We'll adapt there if we need to, but as of right now, this is the situation that we have and how we're going to coach and deal with it.
I've asked you this question before, or a version of this question before. I won't make you rewrite the entire system tonight, but how about just a simpler question? If you were looking at the factors that were fairest to coaches and student athletes, what is a fair metric to determine the quality of a postseason caliber team?
It's tough because I've gone back and forth on this too, based on strength of schedules and everything too. I think, raising it to 4 games, for us to qualify for the playoffs first might be a good place to, a good thing to do for us, or maybe even having, a team that has 6 wins and then being able to, use the point system from there on down, right?
The legend makes his annual appearance. Great to see you, Owen.
But I think there's some things that we can do and still use, still have value in the, in the power rankings, but, maybe having a top, the top half qualifier, for wins, losses or whatnot, like, having an amount of wins that secures a playoff spot for you. And then whoever doesn't qualify with that metric, we would use the power rankings after that to sort out the rest of the field. Those are things that I've kind of thought about before. How can we combine, that line of thinking with this as well too? Because the power rankings right now, based on what we're using, is based on a 20-game basketball or baseball schedule. Not an 8-game football schedule. So it's the more sample size you get with it, obviously the numbers balance out a lot better. So it's tough with it being 8 games and trying to measure all that out with the current formula that we have. So I think tweaks need to be looked at. I don't know what there's so many factors. I don't know what the fairest way to do that is. I really don't. So I'm glad I'm not in the position to make that. We'll just kind of deal with it as it comes, and think what make our suggestions where they ask for them. But we're never going to find a perfect way to do it. If we want to keep Thanksgiving, and have the state playoff, this is going to it's going to end up in a system that, that's going to be divided on, people who like it and people who don't.
I mean, even the NCAA continues to search for the right combination that they keep their bowl games, which has certainly been part of the college structure for years, but also declare a national champion in some sort of a postseason. And you can see it there in a larger scale, and the same problems here where you try to keep Thanksgiving as part of the equation. Thanksgiving lands in the middle of your postseason. It's never going to quite fit together when you have to keep multiple factors going together in that way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I hope that we can work on a way to either make the season a week longer, whether that be on the front end, which after the last couple of weeks of here with the basketball, the winter sports communities have to say about it, I think that's probably the most doable. But there needs to be another week, or there needs to be a tweak in the playoffs or Thanksgiving. We just can't have all of it the way that we want. So, and the last thing we want to see, it's tough because you want to have that true state playoff system, that accounts for everything, but you don't want to lose that tradition of Thanksgiving, especially in our case with Fitchburg and Leominster. But I think ours is more the exception to the rule nowadays too, with some of these Thanksgiving rivalries, because a lot of teams have switched up since divisions have switched, and there's not I think you still have like a lot of the big marquee matchups, rivalries that have gone on for 100 plus years now. But that's not the case for most of the state. Most of the state is dealing with other Thanksgiving opponents that aren't longtime rivals, or or even geographical rivals, sometimes too.
No question about it.
It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot to try to appease everybody and come together on something that everybody agrees with. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion. But
I'm a big advocate of the winter sports, and I saw those comments as well. And I guess the part that the winter sports folks have not answered for me yet is how shifting 1 week back into their season and them shifting 1 week back into the spring, which we've proven year after year in New England, a deeper spring schedule is better anyway for the weather the way we are now, and pushing their season back a week into the beginning of the summer. Nobody has yet been able to explain to me why that's a problem. That's the part they keep losing me on.
For sure. And I think when you come down to the, really with that extra week, if we were to go into the winter season, as far as, football goes, it's really, you're only talking about 16 teams that are being affected here. Because it's really only that last week, the championship week. So it's really only 16 teams that would be affected by that change too. So I get it. Everybody wants to advocate and support their sport and their season. But there's got to be some real deep discussion and, kind of looking at the big picture here of everybody and all the kids involved, to be able to come up with the right time frames, the right systems. And I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately.
A rising tide raises all boats. Let's throw another cliche in there. To me, one more week in every season seems like a rising tide, but that's just me. We report, you decide. Week 7 action around the region. St. John's of Shrewsbury travels to Xaverian. Marlborough plays host to Algonquin. Fitchburg on the road at Neshoba. And Shepherd Hill plays host to Shrewsbury in Central Mass action. Meanwhile, week 7, it's the game of the week, the game of the Central Mass year, the battle of the 5-1 football teams. Wachusett travels to Leominster, the game at Doyle Field this week for homecoming and senior night. Yes, those are all confirmed, by the way. Triple confirmed, homecoming and senior night, as well as officials appreciation night. We're going to lump it all together into one big night of week 7 action at Doyle Field, Leominster's last home game of the first 8 weeks of the year as well. And Coach, all of that said, this is kind of the matchup that kind of features the presumed king of the hill. Wachusett was expected to be there. They were the team that everybody was going to be measuring themselves against in Central Mass. And then your team, which is the team on a mission this year, the team that's on a mission to prove that they belong in that conversation for being a part of it. It makes for this really great conversation of a collision of, two teams that just seem like they're heading in the same direction. And here they are. They're going to be on display on Friday night.
No, it should be a great atmosphere. We're looking forward to playing them at home. We haven't played them at home in quite a long time, at least since I've been there. So to have them at home is, it's something we're excited about. But this is a phenomenal football team. Both sides of the ball, special teams, they're well coached. It presents a huge issue for us, we've, the first time we've had really kind of top tier competition this year, we didn't put our best foot forward. So, we've corrected the mistakes from last week from Peabody. Because I think we're going to see a lot of the same type of stuff that we saw, at least in the Peabody game in terms of passing game. So we really have our work cut out for us to make sure that we're in the right spots, calling the right things. We're setting our kids up for success. This is a game where, the tiniest mistake could make a huge difference in the game. I think, Wachusett's proven that they can, weather those instances and come out on top. And so we got to make sure that we play our game, try to play, as mistake-free football as we can, without playing tight. We want to make sure what's got us to this point now is being confident and being able to fire off the ball and kind of play that explosive brand of football. And we want to make sure that what we're doing doesn't take away from that approach and that mentality that our guys have right now.
It's funny you should allude to the Peabody game. It was where I wanted to go with this next question, because I got to thinking this afternoon about this Peabody game. And of course, what we always say, the importance of booking these crossover games and, to play better teams and competitions and prepare you for further down the road. And I feel like this is quite a literal example. And actually, the more I've thought about it, both teams have a quite literal example of this, as you guys have the Peabody game to kind of measure off of. Wachusett has the Franklin game to measure off of, although back in week 1, and maybe you could argue it's 6 weeks later, so maybe not a lot to compare to. But if we use those as kind of your point, they just seem like the perfect games for both teams to go to school on themselves when you're being self-reflective and going, this is what we're going to get from our opposition this week. Where were our weaknesses back in those weeks, and how do we fix them going forward?
Well, sure. It's the best examples for us, in terms of a team that runs similar, we're looking at their defense and our offense, a team that runs similar formations in, like Franklin, like what we might get from that. Obviously I think, we're not going to get the same exact look. That's not going to happen. But just seeing like how they feel like they might want to play that type of stuff, and I think that's the same reason why they would want Peabody from us, right? To see what we did against their offense, to see where we might be vulnerable. So it's really those two games reflect, obviously great competition that we both played, but also similar styles offensively and defensively where we can kind of start our game plan and, from there.
You're 7 weeks into the season. And so I think the important point here is that there's not a lot of surprises that are left. There's a lot of tape. There's 6 previous games for both teams that can be reviewed by both sides. And of course, kind of get a sense of where both programs are at. And the one thing I think that people who maybe don't watch other communities would be interested to note here is if you haven't seen Wachusett this year, the standout point, we saw it on the broadcast back in week 1 when we called the Wachusett Franklin game. This is not the same power football, wing T football Wachusett that historically they have been. It's not that they're not capable of it. It's just not where they are this year. Their personnel has moved them in a different direction because they have Tucker McDonald, of course, who is the standout quarterback of Central Mass, and he's just a different style quarterback. And so they have built an offense that supports that. And they also happen to have the runners and the receivers to support all of those changes. So I think in part, I think that will be the thing for Leominster fans that haven't seen Wachusett yet in 2022. If they're expecting big players, they'll find those on Wachusett's line, but you're not going to find the big bruising backs. You're going to find more of a passing vertical team than, you're used to seeing out of Wachusett.
They're still as powerful as ever, though. It really, even though the style may change, they're still the same tough, hard-nosed mentality. Where Peabody for us was more of a, their receivers were, I think, a little bit quicker, more, lateral agility and whatnot, and where Wachusett's receivers, Matt Rake is, he's the speedster there too, but Arturo Johnson and Grayson Baker, the tight end and one of the other outside receivers, they're 6'5", 6'7", respectively, and run great routes and are great catching the ball. They may not be as fast laterally as some of the Peabody receivers, but they pose a whole different issue for us in terms of height and possession. So while schematically a lot of things may be the same, it's personnel wise that we need to account for here too. So and then it doesn't get any better than Tucker McDonald in the region. UConn commit, great kid, a heck of a football player, great with his legs too. So he presents a huge problem for us, and we got to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in terms of trying to make him uncomfortable. I think that's kind of the key for us, defensively, is to kind of get him off schedule. But if you're thinking just because they went to spread from a wing T, that maybe they're not as downhill or as aggressive, they're certainly as aggressive and as strong as advertised as they've ever been. They have a really good football team.
No question about that. A lot to unpack there. First, let's start with Tucker McDonald. He is, I think, the epitome of the dual threat quarterback, as he both has the strong arm to take the ball down the field or, read his progressions and find them with laser precision, but then also the ability with his legs to go down the field himself. If space exists and he doesn't have necessarily a spot to go throwing the football, he's not afraid to tuck the ball and take it down the field himself.
Yeah, and this is where I think he's gotten better throughout the year too, at least from the Franklin game, is being able to use his legs more and not put the ball in danger, which is really hard for defenses to account for. Because if he breaks the pocket or even some of the QB design runs that they have, he's really good at finding the crease and go. He's just an athlete. He plays quarterback, but he's a basketball player too. The kid is just an athlete. So he's dangerous. He's really, really dangerous, and we got to make sure that we're ready for that challenge. But he definitely has gotten better at making plays happen, once maybe protection breaks down, instead of maybe forcing the play into coverage where it shouldn't go. So he's definitely matured even just since the beginning of this season, never mind, from last season too. So especially over the last 3 weeks, he's playing some really good football.
Editorial aside, did you just say he's a multi-sport athlete? He doesn't just have football for breakfast, lunch, and dinner year round? What a thought. I mean,
one of those guys.
Right? Yep. Yeah.
A true throwback.
A true throwback to, 2000. Go figure. Somebody who plays more than one sport. No, that is, to me, that's the type of athlete that I think is, best served. The true athlete. You'll find what you're really good at, and the opportunity that you were really good at will still find you, regardless of whether all you do is throw a football year round.
Yeah.
No question about it. Tail of the tape, coach. This is the other part that I think was interesting to your note, because they are still a physical football team. And I said it, you're going to get that size, and it's up front. This will be one of the first times this season that you are going to lose the tail of the tape, if you'll forgive the boxing analogy, where you are going to give up size, height, and reach advantage in the trenches. This will be the first time this year your linemen are going to be outsized to their competition. It's something that if they go back over the portfolio of their 4 years here, they certainly have faced this situation before and used to face it week in and week out. They've just been at the point this year where their growth spurt, their maturity, and their development have put them in the place where they're the ones that have been doing those sorts of things and outsizing their competition and outstrengthening their competition. Now this week, they're going to be put back into that spot. Is it somewhat unique in that they have that place where they can go back and remember what it was like to play the bigger guys, and maybe now that they are more physically capable, they've got something more in their mind with experience comes the ability to deal with being the smaller guy?
I mean, to be honest, we're not even really going to talk about it at all. We're just, we have our assignments and what we're supposed to do. We're going to go out there and execute. If they determine the wins and loss just based on the measurements, then we'd be in trouble. But thankfully, they let us play the game first. So we will, we'll talk about the type of players that they are and their strengths and where we think we could take advantage of some things. But again, it's not something we're going to harp on with our guys. We're going to go out there and talk about, our assignments, our steps, what we need to do. And we'll go out there and execute. We want them feeling confident in what they're doing. And that's the approach that we've had all year long. So we're not going to change it up, this week. It's a big game, but we're still going to approach it just like we would approach any other week.
Keeping it simple, a unique thought. How important is a fast start this week? Obviously, we've been talking about it. We talked about it earlier on, but it just feels like in this game, whether it's scoring first, getting a turnover early, something early on to make a difference. And again, we go back to the case study of Peabody. It was one of those first times in the year where they scored first, they got a turnover first, they started to pile things up quickly, and all of a sudden, you're on the slippery slope going in the wrong direction. How important is that this week, if you look at it as a case study and say, we could really benefit from scoring first, from having a turnover in a first possession, to really be able to get us momentum-wise moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think either setting the pace or keeping with the pace is going to be crucial for us. It really is. And again, I don't want to, play outside of ourselves and feel we're going to force the ball downfield and stuff, because that's where we got in trouble with Peabody a little bit, trying to get these big chunks back right away. I think we're able to just be a little bit more patient with what we want to do. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't attack the ball, attack downfield or anything, but we have to realize that the caliber of the team that we're playing. Right. And there's going to be times where they get us and times where we get them. We just got to make sure that we, again, play within ourselves so that we're not, trying to do more than we have to. There's no, if we get down 20 points or something like that, like we talked about in Peabody, there's no 20-point play that is going to go out there and happen. Right. We got to go and just take it one series at a time. As cliche as it sounds, as boring as that sounds, we really need to, keep our same approach, no matter what happens the previous series, at least offensively talking about, and same thing defensively too. We have to have a short memory with stuff and just go out there and play our game. But that being said, we always want to try to set the pace, or at the very least keep pace with our opponent. That's certainly the goal.
Hey, I've been hosting a coach's show for 11 years. You can't possibly bore me with coach speak. This is my Monday night for 11 seasons, coach. Not a problem in the slightest. Not a problem in the slightest in that regard. But your point is well taken, because I think about it, whether that first score comes in 5 minutes or it takes the whole bleeding of the first quarter. The first score matters, but it could come quick. It could come at the end. Somebody's going to score first. It just is a question of how much time it's going to take to get there.
Yeah, it's to use another type of cliche, we want to put our foot on the gas and drive at a fast speed, but still be in control of the car. We want to make sure that we're not trying to do things where now we're starting to swerve and kind of get out of control and kind of live by the seat of our pants. We don't want to be in that position. I think that's a dangerous position to be in. We want to be in control. We want to play fast, but we don't want to play too fast and play outside ourselves. We want to make sure that we're playing confident and determined what we're doing, without the car going off the road.
No question. Your first half storyline, what will be the thing that you're looking for in this first half of action as we get toward halftime and we look back over the first half? What's the ideal story that we're talking about at that point?
Again, with us, it's always line of scrimmage. Are we able to get pressure and force Tucker McDonald to into some uncomfortable situations? Are we able to to slow down the run game a little bit? And then are we able to establish any run from us? And are we able to protect Osiris? That's really the benchmark every week for us. Because that kind of, that's the foundation for us, and whatever we can do, if we establish those things in the line of scrimmage, then, that dictates, play calling, in terms of how aggressive we can be, or, both offensively and defensively. So for us, it's always about the line of scrimmage.
No doubt about it. You alluded to this earlier, so I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about this. We said it's homecoming and senior night on Friday night, and you give a lot of credit to this season and the development and the growth of the program to your senior class. This will be that opportunity to honor them, but one more time, and I'm sure I'll ask you again in the pregame as well, but talk to me about this senior class and the indelible stamp they're going to leave on your tenure in this program, and obviously what they've done for the players behind them in this program as well.
Yeah, we always talk about leaving a legacy, and to this group's credit, they came in, they did a great job as freshmen. I think they were 7-2 with one of their only losses being to Wachusett. And that's a game where Mackay played with varsity that year, being freshmen, because we were short, both running backs and defensive backs that week. It's a class that's worked so hard and stayed together and been so close. That as a coach, it's a dream to have, because now the younger guys see, how things should be done. And we can always point to that example of, this is, guys, when you do the things that they do, and when you put together the work ethic and the off-season preparation, that this class did, you can see what happens, right? So now we have evidence of staying the course, and being resilient. And that's all this class has done. So they've really reestablish the standard of Leominster football, I think. And again, like I said, there's still a lot of season left to go here. But in terms of what people expect from Leominster High football, this class has, this class knows what people expect from it, and they've worked to get the standard back up there. And it's something that we're not going to take steps back on either. Once we've established it now, we got to, make sure that the younger kids know, and that we, develop guys, as a coaching staff, develop guys, so they can have the same production that this class has had. But, just aside from the football field, it's just an absolutely beautiful, fun class to be around. The guys are so great. I think we have a great relationship with all of them. And, it's a class that, I'm not looking forward to losing, just relationship wise. Never mind, like I said, just never mind the football wise. But there's a lot of great, smart kids in this football class, and I'm just really proud to be their coach, and looking forward to celebrating them on Friday.
Yeah, there's a great story that I believe is on the record that we talked about 4 years ago when they were freshmen. If it isn't, forgive me, but it's a good story, and we're far enough removed from it. And that is the story. You talk about the chemistry and how they stayed together. And I will never forget, you mentioned Mackay Newton coming up to play varsity. And as we got closer to Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken, he said, I would like to go back and I would like to play with my guys. He wanted to go back and play with the underclassmen in their game against Fitchburg 4 years ago. And that group stayed together all the way up to this point. It's just a great story about guys who aren't out just for themselves. He wanted to be with his group. And that, I think, is just one little token that proves your point, which is these guys have been together from the time they got to Leominster High.
Yeah, and that's a great example. I mean, they're so unselfish. They do everything for each other and nothing for themselves. It's really been inspiring to watch. Just being able to sit back, on the outside here and just watch how they interact together, and how what they do to teach the younger guys too, and you just even for cheering for the younger guys, when the younger guys mix it, or even teaching the younger guys, it's a lot more powerful, I think, when the older guys have heard it from us and now they're able to teach it to some of the younger guys too. I think it means a lot more to the younger guys. They expect the coaches to say stuff. Half the time they're tuning me out. Hopefully it's the latter half when I'm just talking at the end of practice and not the actual coaching that's going on. But it means so much more to them when they hear it from a peer, an older peer that's doing it. I think it means a lot to them because they don't want to be the guy that lets their friend down, for the younger guys. And that's what's been great about this class is you have a bunch of guys that are unselfish, that carry themselves that way. And the program is important to them. They're important to each other, and they want to leave it in better shape than they found it. I know that there's some people coming in that are younger players that are concerned about playing up with varsity guys and whatnot. And, if they would be welcomed in, and, that's just, they are. Everybody's welcome here. It's, everybody who is willing to put forth the effort and do all the work that it takes to win, gets respect from the guys on the team. So, And that starts with the senior class mentality. So very thankful for them and what they've done for us, and just looking forward to the rest of the season with them.
I am privileged tacitly to be able to be close enough to see this going on. And it's not the stories we're always busy telling, but to see that chemistry when they're all together is every bit as impressive as watching the performance for the 12-minute quarters that we cover the football games as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them down the stretch here. As we said, it's that weird thing about the way the schedule goes. We're in week 7 and we're talking about the end of the year, but that's how this goes, because you don't know if you'll get another home game between now and Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving always proves to be a very awkward day to have a senior day as well. So these are one of those things that are forced in by the way the schedule is. So
the reality is we got 5 games left. Either way you shake out of it, we're gonna do our best to win those 5 games.
So we get to do the great chronicle look back in the middle. It's awkward, but there'll be 5 more football games, like you said, one way or another in the weeks ahead, which means 5 more editions of the Coach's Corner as well, as we keep right on going. Coach, as always, thank you so much. Week 7 action on RFM audio as Wachusett comes to Leominster in a battle of 5-1 football teams. It's a 7:00 kickoff from Doyle Field. We'll have our countdown to kickoff along with our partners. We've got you covered on the way to the game, at the game, and on your way home, even over the weekend as well. Our live countdown to kickoff, 6 o'clock on these same RFM platforms, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. And then Leominster TV joins us for live coverage beginning at 6:30 on the channels of Comcast, Verizon, and Leominster.tv. And then there's replays with our partners on Saturday at noon, 95.1 FM, WLPZ, in and around North Central Mass, WLPZ.org the world over. And then Sundays at noon, Tucka56radio.com, Dick Tucker in his online radio pursuits, Tucka56 Radio, TUCKA56radio.com. We thank them all so very much for being great partners with us in this 2022 campaign as well. And of course, no week begins without the Coach's Corner, Mondays at 9 p.m. on these same RFM platforms, where the breakdown and analysis continues throughout the week. Tucka56 Radio and Tucka56radio.com has your Coach's Corner at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays, and then 95.1 FM, WLPZ, and WLPZ.org Thursdays at 5 p.m. for the Coach's Corner. For Leominster High School Head Coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins, saying thank you so very much for joining us. And until next week here on the Coach's Corner, or Friday night for Leominster and Wachusett, we say so long, everybody.